Daniel Jones. I'm the preventive maintenance technician here at Essity's mill. We produce kitchen tile at this site. Obviously various different sites produce obviously toilet paper, but this site in particular produces kitchen tile. The reason we obviously looked into changing the lubrication supplier was due to a lot of bearing failures, which obviously produced downtime and various other factors.
I'm Matthew Cloran. I'm an account manager for Kluber Lubrication and I cover the North West region. Essity contacted Kluber because they wanted to discuss how we could help them implement a new lubrication programme. The initial steps were to come to site, sit down, present what Kluber could offer and go through our different services and what value we could bring to site.
When we come across Kluber, they advised me to go on a training course which I attended, and the way they approached themselves was very, very good and helpful.
Typically the first step in a lubrication project would be a site survey, and this involves one of our lubrication engineers who will walk site, typically with one of the engineers. They will map out every single piece of equipment that a site has, map out every single lubrication point and come up with a recommendation for each lubrication point. Also, as part of that process, they'll be looking at where they can optimise. So how can we improve the lubrication point? Can we automate the lubrication point? Can we use a higher grade grease, for example, to shorten the lubrication intervals?
So initially we only had one grease on site that done every single application, which we knew wasn't correct, as different stuff requires a different lubricant. So when we worked with Kluber, they advised different greases, different oils for different applications.
So a lot of recommendations were made for site to try and use greases that were appropriate for the application. Site is a very wet site and there's a lot of water in a lot of the applications, so we recommended greases that were suitable for those applications. We also then looked at recommending optimisations around automation of lubrication points, so we used a lot of our Klubermatics lubrication units that went onto motors and pump bearings. This allows site to free up a lot of time for the engineers because they don't have to walk around doing manual lubrication. They can rely on an automated lubrication system to carry out the task for them. It also gives them a visual feedback so they can see that the unit that they have in place is operating and correctly dispensing grease into the bearing.
So the oil we were changing on a frequency previously, it was like a 6-month frequency, which every time we took the oil out it was very contaminated. So we decided obviously when we moved to Kluber we'd change it from frequency just to samples only. And since we've changed, the samples have come back positive every time so far, so we're changing it way less frequently. The oil store previously wasn't up to a very good standard. Over time, working with Kluber, we've come up with a better solution for how we store the oil, the greases, which they provide the cabinets which are a much better, more efficient way of working.
Efficiency Manager is a tool that Kluber have that we provide to customers. When we have a survey for site which maps out all the lubrication points for site, we can then put that into a digital format, and on the back of that we can set up tasks in this system, the lubrication tasks, for example, grease this bearing at these intervals. This was a real benefit for Essity because previously they were using a spreadsheet based system. Moving to Efficiency Manager allowed them to digitalise this, and it allows multiple users to have access to the system so everyone on site knows what lubrication tasks have to be carried out and when.
The savings aspect obviously fall into my hands really because I've got more time on my job then to do more things in regards to fixing stuff and not just walking around checking grease spots really.
Some of the biggest gains that Essity have seen are a reduction in the time needed to lubricate. We talked about automatic lubrication. I think site had mentioned that there's been a 50% reduction in manual time needed to lubricate certain bearings where they'd installed auto lubrication units. This obviously is a massive benefit because that engineer then has time to focus on more critical tasks on site.
The partnership's very beneficial. I feel like I've got on really well with Matthew. They're very helpful. Whenever I need any assistance, they're there to help. Reply in emails very quickly, which is good.
So I really enjoy working on projects where I can offer value add to customers, and it's a lot more interesting rather than it just being a commodity sale. I can work together with a customer to come up with a bespoke solution, and I get a lot of enjoyment and satisfaction out of that.